end. And the front end in that case is not with Spring Data Neo4j 6, but with Angular. And that's the part I am currently focusing on, and I will continue that today. But before I start, I would like to know if I need to go through the context of the application, what the application is, what kind of problems the application needs to solve, or if I should dive straight away into the coding. I will have a few things to share first, but yeah, do I need to recap what we're trying to build here? And if so, please tell me in the comments. Don't be shy. So I'm going to post the question as well in the chat, so that in that case you may be able to answer even if you join a bit afterwards. I believe the comments are visible even if you join after that. I'm not completely sure, but so let me post the question. Do I need to recap what the application is supposed to do and what we have to do still? Okay, so here is my question. Please comment in YouTube Live or on Twitch, whatever platform you are using, and tell me if I need to recap. So in the meantime, let me share my screen a little bit and tell you about Nodes 2021, as I'm saying every time, because it's a cool event that Neo4j organizes. I'm obviously biased, but Nodes 2021, so Nodes is coming back this year in June, so hopefully we'll have some beautiful weather around where I live, which is Paris, France, by the way. And we would love for you, of course, to attend the conference, but also, so please save your spot already, and then you will be able to hear about Neo4j experts, Neo4j users, and hear about their experiences, about the new things that are coming up, etc., etc. So very, very cool event, and we would be enjoyed just to have you attend and share your experience maybe as well. And that's why I also want to share this particular link, so papercall.io/nodes2021. And yeah, what about having you submit something for this event? You've been probably attending this event for a while now. You know, we had it in 2019, 2020. Maybe now is the year for you to submit a talk. It doesn't have to be about something new. We are all interested. So of course, if it's something new, it's a new project you've created around Neo4j, we are more than happy to hear you talk about it. It can also be what you've done with Neo4j, the experience you've learned with Neo4j. Really, every kind of talk around Neo4j is welcome, and we would love to hear about your experience with it. So I believe the date for the call for papers is in April. I think it used to be a bit more obvious. Okay, here, 5th of April. So you still have a little while, but as I always say, the sooner you submit, the better, because you are more likely to have your submissions reviewed by the committee that reviews that in a more serene way, because if of course people send submissions at the very last minute, then we'll get many submissions like that, and for the committee it's harder to review because you have a big volume of submissions to digest in a very short time. So maybe that's not I know my colleagues at the handling this event are well organized, and they will manage all the submissions, but as a general rule of thumb, regardless of nodes, but for conferences in general, the sooner you submit, the better for you, and you might even have a chance to get some feedback and improve your submission if needed. So yes, please send submissions. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you about your experiences with Neo4j. And as I'm talking about Neo4j employees and the community as well. We are eager to learn about what you've been doing. And so, of course, save a spot as well if you just want to attend, which is also very nice. You will have the opportunity to discuss with many great people in the community. So please do not miss this opportunity, 17th of June. And thank you. So I didn't see any comment in the chat to tell me whether I should recap what I've been trying to do in this live stream series started a few weeks back, which I guess means either people are shy or maybe nobody's watching, which can happen, you know. So let me do maybe a very, very short recap, and then we can dive straight away into the coding. So, and before that, you know, just a piece of news about me. I've changed teams. So I used to work for developer relations with a big focus on drivers and the driver community. And I'm happy to announce now that I work in the drivers team directly. The only visible change if you are in the driver community is probably non-existent. I will continue my community outreach, but I will have more engineering focus on the co-drivers specifically. But yeah, do not worry. The community activities I've been doing will continue to be done and will continue to be involved. And so yes, that's about me. So that's a slight change of my position within Neo4j, but you know, great experience on the DevRel team, very, very nice colleagues, and it's not like I will stop working with them. I will continue working with them, of course, and as part of that, I also want to continue my live streams as much as possible. So maybe once a week will be too often for my schedule. We'll see. It might be adapted to occur slightly less often, but that's something to be determined at this point. I at least want to finish this series on the Spring Data application and also resume the GoGum series. So the series I started with Eric Solander, CTO of Mindstand, which is a company that created the GoGum framework, which is an object graph mapper written in Golang, heavily inspired from Neo4j OGM, which is the older generation of GMs that Spring Data Neo4j used to rely upon, but not anymore with Spring Data Neo4j 6, which is the version we're using. All right, so because I still don't see any comments from YouTube or Twitch, I will then move on to the recap of what the application is doing, and I will try to be a bit quicker than usual. So as part of my work, you know, doing outreach to the community of driver authors, whenever I stumble upon a new project that creates an HTTP connector or a Bolt connector, Bolt is a binary protocol that Neo4j uses, I try, of course, to list them and keep a reference somewhere. So far, it's been mostly a spreadsheet, and I've been trying manually to say, hey, why not use a graph for that? So I have this in my Neo4j desktop, local Neo4j desktop. I have a local instance where I have started converting manually my spreadsheet into a graph, but you know, it's a bit tedious to do and error prone as well. So what I want to do instead is have some kind of applications, graphical user interface included, to input this kind of information. So the GitHub URI, who maintains it, the contact of that person, etc., etc. So that's the work we've been doing. And just to give you an idea of the kind of data we're dealing with and the kind of data I want to be able to save easily with a nice little graphical user interface, let me just use Neo4j desktop and see what kind of graph we have here. So we have a nice entangled web of things. So let me start with a random one. I don't know. Let's take, oh, interesting. Which is this one? Yeah, no, not a good example. I'm trying to find a good example in this. Oh, for instance, so Nigel Small, who's the team lead of the drivers team, has this Python Neo project, which I believe started even before I joined Neo4j 2013, I guess. So that project is, of course, here. It's not official, but it's well maintained, of course. Nigel spends regular time on it. You can see there is a documentation about it, so it actually refers to the website, pythonneo.org. And if we pull the related data around, so it's written in Python, and then it supports protocols. So in that case here, that's something I've changed while I wrote my application, but it supports Bolt v4.1, v2, v1, v3, v4.2, etc., etc. So that tells you what kind of protocols it supports. So we have been doing it since I started live coding the application in this live stream series that you're currently attending. Is that Bolt is a single node, HTTP is another single node, and the version is carried by the relationship. So the graph we will end up with will be slightly different, and I might even have a proof of that. Let me see. So yes, this Neo4j driver admin, which is the name I gave to the project for lack of better name. Naming is hard, right? Let's see real quick. How, of course, here it has some dummy data that I used when I was exercising my REST API, powered by Spring MVC and Spring Data Neo4j under the hood. And we might have a few nodes here and there, just to see the difference in structure. So there is no, of course, I'm just focusing on some parts of the graph at this point. It's not complete enough yet, but if I do the same thing, get this query, say I have a single bolt here, and HTTP on the other side, and I have some dummy driver here, and so with some dummy URI and whether it's official or not, and then the support carries a versions attribute, and in that case it's v1, in that case it's v4.2, and in that case it's v1 again. For HTTP, versions does not really matter as of now, so maybe that's not the best way to model the domain, because I have an attribute that is useless in the HTTP context, but is useful in the Bolt context. So any suggestions to improve my design is more than welcome. All right, let me, change the logo so it's a bit more visible. Very important. And then let's move on to the coding. So first, we have a backend, and we're not going to touch most of that today. So I just started from scratch. If you go back to the first episodes of this live stream series on YouTube, you will see I started with the basic things, start.spring.io. And so I have a few entities. So in Spring Data Neo4j 6 terms. So if I look, I have, for instance, a driver. What's a driver? It's a node whose main label is driver. The technical ID, so the primary key, so to say, of the node is completely managed by the framework. So whenever it persists a new entity, it will generate the UUID for me, which is reliable contrary to internal IDs or intrinsic IDs of nodes and relationships, because those are just offsets in a file. And of course, due to fragmentation, if you want to avoid fragmentation, you can recycle empty space in those files, and the same offset could point to another record later in time. So those are not stable IDs. So that's why I tend, if you don't have a natural business key, UUID generator, I believe, is the way to go. So yeah, I have an ID, I have a URI for the GitHub project, or GitLab, or whatever you use, whether it's official or not. And then we have these relationships that we've seen in Neo4j Desktop with what kind of protocol it supports, or transport. I call it transport here. So you see, I'm even contradicting myself. So again, naming might not be ideal, but open to remarks. Feel free to post comments. And so if we dig into that, of course, a project can support several things. If we take Python Neo again, so the Nigel's project, Python Neo supports HTTP, so like the Cypher transactional endpoint, for instance, but it also supports various versions of Bolt. So if we look at this, what does it do? It has a transport and versions, because it could support several versions. For instance, you could support Bolt v1, v2, v3, v4.0, v4 v4.1, for instance, or a subset of that. So you can carry, instead of having multiple relationships, we can just have several versions in there. It's for the kind of queries we're doing right now, it's fine. It might be changed. Maybe we'll have only n relationships between transport and driver in the future. We'll see. It all depends on the kind of query we are using. So yeah, there is no general good model. It all depends on what are the queries you're trying to come up with. So on the problem you're trying to solve. And then drivers, so versions are just string, like 4.1, 4.2. Driver transport is very simple. It encapsulates a value, and you can see here I don't have a generated value annotation like in the Neo4j driver because I don't need it. I just assign it to either HTTP or Bolt. And here is my business key for you, and that's how I end up, at least, yeah. Of course, you would need uniqueness constraints to guarantee this completely, but it kind of allows me to only have one node for HTTP and one node for Bolt. I guess if I start to do some multi-threaded stuff, since my assumption of a single node per transport would blow up, which is why, again, you need uniqueness constraints when you start your server. And we can talk about that at some point in the series, because I've already talked a little bit about Liquid Graph, which is a project of mine. Recently, I worked on a replacement called Liquid-based plugin. I might talk about this. And I know my colleague Michael Simons, who is a co-maintainer of Spring Data Neo4j with Gerrit Meyer, also developed a Flyway-inspired database migration tool. Whereas Liquid Graph obviously is inspired from Liquibase, as the name may suggest, and the Liquibase plugin is an actual legit plugin of Liquibase. So depending whether you like Liquibase or Flyway, pick one or the other, I would say. But yeah, that could be a topic for another stream. So let me know if you're interested in database migration in general, and I can even do a comparison between Liquid Graph, Liquibase plugin, and the migration tool of my colleague Michael Simons. All right, so we have a driver which supports one-to-many transports like HTTP or Bolt at the moment, and with several versions for Bolt, the transport being just a wrapper around this simple value here. Nice, cool. And what do we want to do at this point? We have driver repositories that allows us a very minimal Spring Data repository. So repository by default exposes absolutely no operations. Here we have a write operations called save, and with that we expose it through the APIs there, and that's how we have our API working. So that's all very nice, very good. Of course, on the test side, I'm just going to show one real quick. We're using test containers with the Genuine5 integration, so we can use this test container annotation on the class, the container here, to say we're going to start a Neo4j container, and my colleague Michael Simons, again, created this nice Neo4j integration for test containers, and that allows me to start very easily a Neo4j container that will do the right thing, wait for the write logs to pop up when Bolt is ready, and that way the image is usable at the right moment. Then I just have this nice little trick from Spring Framework when you want to test, configure on the fly stuff that has been created a bit before the test starts. So this dynamic property source does exactly that, configure Spring Data Neo4j to connect to the right instance, which is port URL of the container, the username and password, which is super important. Why? Because the local port that is mapped to the Bolt port of the container is completely random. So you have to do it on the fly, but thanks to that, it's very, very easy. All right, and then of course we have a simple test that saves the transport, creates my entity, saves it, and makes sure that it is found in the database. So nothing too important. Same for API test. So in that case, I took more like a mocking approach. Even though I use the Spring stuff, I could use a simple unit test. Actually, that doesn't really matter. When I send post, I just check 201. I could check a little more, but because I mocked the data layer, it doesn't really matter much. And that's our API, and we're going to close this because that's not what we are working on now. Now we are working on having a small graphical user interface over this API. Of course, I could use curl or wget, etc. But a nice graphical user interface would be much, much better. So I've started with the very basic. So I generated the Angular application from scratch last week. And so I started, inside out. So, there are several ways to do TDD, like outside in, inside out. So I started inside out, like with a specific service in terms of Angular, which is basically allows you to interact with the external world, in that case, my API. And then I will gradually build from that the HTML markup needed in the component. So component basically encapsulates interactions in the DOM and changes some data, interacts from service, the bridge between services and the DOM to speak very quickly. So I'm not yet there. I'm still on the driver service. So the driver service at the moment posts to /driver. So it assumes it's the same host and the same port. So that's something we will have to come back to in a second, because currently the application locally is not configured to do that. Sending some JSON, which is actually the driver. So the driver is a simple interface that can be mapped, cast, to take JSON and cast into that. URI official, and it basically mimics entities on the backend side. So yeah, and driver transport is just a value I wanted to play with enums, but string-based enums are not available with the TypeScript version we're using, as we learned last week. And so now that I have this beautiful save API, I just want to use it in my Angular application, and I believe we are kind of stuck, and we are with a failing test at the moment. So we have this test, because we always start with a test, should send post request to the driver API. So given this specific driver, with this URI, it's official and supports bolt version 4.2, when I call save, I should expect that the save succeeded. Because basically right now, I believe we map whether the response code is 201, because that's what the API should return. And if not, then something went wrong. So that's probably a bit basic at the moment, but we will start with that. And so when we subscribe to these observables, the save should happen. It should convert it to a Boolean, and I should receive a Boolean, and then my test is done. So it's using a callback, so that's why it's asynchronous, and we have this small Jasmine utility here to do that. And we expect, of course, a request to /driver, and it should be a post. And we could even probably add something like, oops, I cannot type, expect rec dot request dot body to be, I guess, or to equal even, to equal driver, just to make sure that we actually send some, driver payload and not something completely random. So let's see. So I believe the test still does not pass for some reason, and we have to troubleshoot this. So let me open my terminal and move to GUI. Yes, I believe it's the right path. Yes, thank you. And let's try. So we're just gonna run npm tests and try to figure out what's going wrong. Hopefully we will, else I will spend the next 37 minutes being miserable and stuck, but hopefully that won't happen. And of course, if you know what's going wrong, feel free to comment. That's even better. So we have a few default tests also when we scaffold the application. And async function did not complete within the default timeout, which is 5 seconds. So why is it saying that? Because I have an async test, because I'm using the this done function here, and it's supposed to stop there. So I'm supposed to receive something. And for some reason, for some sad reasons, it didn't receive anything. So when we're stuck and we don't know what to do, I mean, at least the good thing about having a failure is I know where to start, right? But that's always a good thing. I always use that work, especially from one day to the other. If you don't, just to get into the context quickly, just have a failing test at the end of your day and resume with that the day after. Whether you're solo or pairing with people, it's always super useful to share context. Oh, Chrome headless. Yes, we configured that last time. And do I have an issue with the debugger? Yes, nice. So I cannot debug at all. That's not cool. Thank you very much, WebStorm and JetBrains. I don't know why I cannot So let's figure out something else. So I have a driver. I'm calling save. Or maybe, so let me check. Did I miss something? Oh yeah, I think there is this I need to do. I need to understand. How does it work? I think there is a flush needs to be called. Yeah, I think I need to return a response. Basically, I need to. I believe that's the case. I'm not completely sure. So let me read the docs just real quick. You know, it's been a while I haven't done this. So resolve the request by returning a body plus additional HTTP information. That's interesting because I want to return 201 and I have not done it. So yeah, request is probably a bad name. It's more like an expectation, I guess. If we look test request, yeah, well, they call that test request, but what does test request means? Mock request that was received and is ready to be answered. Yeah, okay, whatever. So let's answer with, what was it? It was, I believe, called status. Yeah, because if I don't do that, basically the mock HTTP framework will not return anything, so that's not really cool. So nothing will happen. There's not going to be any response, and my observable here, you know, I will send a post. Nothing will happen. I will never get there, and I will never get my boolean. So I guess that's why it was failing. Now, let's see if I rerun. Test again. Boom, it passes. Oh my god, so easy. Just to make sure I didn't mess something up, let me do something crazy just to make sure that the test doesn't pass when it should. So I don't know, let's do something like this. If it always passes, then there is something wrong. All right, cool. So yeah, expected object not to have properties, but there is all of this, which is actually our driver. So very, very nice. Yay. Hey, we've done it. Happy. Happy. I hope you're happy too. Also, for now, I don't see any comments, so I don't know if I should be worried. Maybe nobody's watching at all. Nobody cares about Angular anymore. I know. It's an old school technology. It's not hip as it used to be, right? But still, that's the technology for front-end development that I'm most familiar with. And anyway, we've got our test, we've got our service, which works for now. So it is very simple true false, like, yay, the save worked, no, it didn't work. But anyway, let's move on then. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in a comment. I'm really, I'm half worried that nobody's watching, really. Let me check. All right. So let's now move on to the exciting part, which is, you know, HTML and CSS. Who doesn't love this? So that's going to be a bit not tricky, but you know, I've used Angular quite extensively 3 years ago, a bit less after that, here and there, you know, probably once or twice a year. So I might be a bit rusty. And also, I must not forget to configure the local app to, yeah, I will talk about it afterwards. So yeah, let's start with something very simple, right? We want a form. We want some kind of form with a URI, the list of transports. We might start very simple. I will start with a single version for now for the transport stuff. So, oh yeah, by default, it generates a bunch of things. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of, okay, there is nothing here. The test is probably, no, this test, we don't want it. I mean, it's nice as a tutorial resource, right? But I don't care about this at this point. If you're learning about Angular, it's nice to see some examples of tests like this. Like, hey, I can test the state in my component. Hey, I can test on the DOM what's going on. However, in my opinion, so that's my personal take on this, I strive for writing my component tests with this point of view only, which is the DOM, because that's the closest thing that the user, the actual user, sees. So I try as much as I can to write tests like this and not like this. That is, checking the actual state of my component. That I don't like to do. I'd rather check the DOM. So, and that's something I'm gonna try to do here again. But for now, let's remove those tests because I don't need them yet. And let's make sure there is no crap so that I don't care. Oh, probably the end-to-end test also must be based. We can talk about end-to-end testing. I can do that later. Some people like to start with that. Some people don't. Just do what you want to do. So I'm just gonna remove the expectation for now. Should display form. And for now, you know what? Throw to do. Yeah, we'll come to that later, I guess. And so I have my app component. So the way it works in Angular, a component is bound by a selector, and that's what you use in the markup. So if we look at index.html, you have this app root here, so which is not standard HTML at all. And that is bound to this component in particular. And then every component has a particular lifecycle. Yeah, okay, it's initialized, destroyed at the end, and there are many states in between that I don't even remember, and we probably won't care too much about this. And then, of course, you can use dependency injection through constructors if you need anything, like we did in the service, for instance. If we look back, we have this standard, it's a built-in HTTP client of Angular, just to write some HTTP interaction. So in that case, a post to a particular API. And we're going to do something very similar here because we're going to need our driver service to save a driver. But before that, we need a form. So let's start with a simple test. All right, let's start with the test. And I'm not a big fan of testing extensively what the markup should be, but I just need an excuse. For me, TDD is also an excuse to get to the implementation. Like I want what is the smallest test I can write to have an excuse to solve the test failure, basically. So on the markup side, I'm a bit sloppy, I will admit. I don't write too much tests. I don't want to write too much specific selectors, for instance. And the reason is I don't want my test to fail just because I moved one HTML element from one place to the other. I don't want that to cause test failures. Of course, if it changes completely and it has nothing to do with what was there before, it might fail. That's acceptable. But small markup changes, in my opinion, should not cause test failures. But again, that's a personal take here. And yeah, so let's see. Let's try to let's try to start with markup. So it should display. So it should create the apps, that's for sure, and it should display driver form. Yes. For that, I will need to get access to the generated DOM. And the way it works is I need to do some things here. But let's start with the basics. So I have a before each. I will need something. So we have the test bed create component here, which is which has every test context. I'm not even sure entirely, but then you can grab the instance of your components right there. And what I like to do is move that actually here. So of course it's going to fail if I let it like this, but I can split it. Replace with let and split. Thank you very much. Same thing here. Replace with let and split. So here it's an app component. Here I need to import. That's a nice thing with TypeScript, this type, so you have imports. So I know it's not everyone likes strong typing, but I like it. Oh, nice, it reformatted everything, which is not what I wanted to do, but anyway. So I've got my fixture, my app, which is So test bed is basically, if you're familiar with Spring, is the application context in Angular terms. So that's a way to configure dependency injection, then start the context, start the test bed, and from the test bed I can get a few things. And then I can get the DOM, but so the DOM does not exist yet, but it will be fixture.native element. So native element gives you the root DOM element that is bound to your component. And started from there, you will have access to all the standard DOM API, like query selector all, or get element by ID, get element by class, if you know the older APIs. Insert, blah, 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 split, please, split, yes, thank you, and let's move it here. So formatting is completely messy, but we'll get to that. But before the DOM is actually initialized properly, when you start your application, it would be done automatically by Angular, but because you're in a unit test context, not everything is done automatically for you. So you need the component to be fully initialized. So for that, we'll do, I'm actually not need to do it right now, so I'm gonna skip it for now. And if we need it, we'll call detect changes, which will trigger, there is two-way data binding between the markup and the component. So if there is a change on one side, it will have consequences on the other side and vice versa. That is usually done automatically, but in unit test context, you usually need to call detect changes. We might not need it now, so let's not write code when we don't know whether we need it or not. Let's be a bit mindful about this. So I have my DOM, and then I should see a form for sure. So I should do something like query selector form, and so expect that this form is there to be truthy. Should be there. Form should be form element should be present or something. Because yeah, it's nice to have a custom error message, because true is not false is not super useful. So okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Yes, yes, okay. So even if I start that will fail. I could be a little more specific. Maybe let's be a little more specific in that case. So we'll have a form, that's for sure. Then what will I have? I would probably have, so let's take this form. So that way, it's a const. I can need to reassign it. Yeah, maybe I don't need, I'm going to put that back here. Then form element, so I can start from the form. I should find how many? I should find probably, let's take all the inputs. So we'll have what? We'll have whether it's official or not, the URI and the transports. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. So we're gonna start with the input, because that's probably the simplest thing. And I'm gonna transform that into proper array and not this dumb node list and this weird structured. I don't know why the DOM API reinvented the wheel. I'd rather have an array to which I can just extract the IDs, for instance. So I'm gonna do this, LID. I want the IDs, so I probably need any. So any is a bit cheating with TypeScript, I'm well aware. If you know the types, it's even better, but I believe it's not super well typed. Yeah, I cannot even find a declaration, so. Why is it unhappy about this? Because it's formatting. Okay. So that gives me the IDs. Input IDs, which is a const. All right, and I expect those. Expect input IDs. How can I say contain? How does it work? How to contain? So to have size, maybe I have at least, how many fields do I have in my application? URI, that's one, name, that's a second. And so the other one will be a select, so that's not going to be an input, and the official or not, true or false, it's probably not going to be an input, probably some kind of toggle. So let's say 2 for now. And I'm not sure what to contain does. Is it for strings or is it also for arrays? Oh yeah, and I cannot repeat, that's not fluent, yeah. Big J fan here, so some old habits die hard. To contain, let me check. No documentation, of course, because why would we need a documentation with such an explicit name, right? Great. Let me check karma real quick. And node 2021, very important. Nice, it shows up again. Karma to contain. Expect to contain. Where is the doc for this? Blah 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 blah. The difference, yeah, I don't care. To match, to contain, that's for strings or an array. Okay, well, I can work with that. So I know there are two, and it should contain probably URI, and it should probably contain. I always forget. What did I say? URI, and what else is there? Oh my god, I have such a goldfish memory. Yeah, that's going to be some kind of select, I guess. So there might be only one, actually. It's just a URI. So the rest will be something else. So, okay. So in that case, it's going to be pretty easy. We call it's just going to be a single array. All right, single quote. Here we go. Nice. And let's start with that. You know, I don't want to spend hours and hours on this test specifying every field. So let's run the test. Let's see it fail. So I'm going to switch to my terminal, but I could use the terminal here as well. Expected null to be truthy, form element should be present, and of course the form element is not there at all. So I will add some Bootstrap or whatever CSS framework at some point. Sorry if I show how outdated I am with the current trends of markups, etc. So I will in the form. Nice, that should solve the first problem. Then what happens? Then of course I need an input, and I don't have it right now. So input ID I believe was right. Let's not be too lazy. Text, come on. Okay, and it's unhappy because there is no label. So let's do it. Let's be a bit semantic if we can. Label for URI, which would then be repository, driver repository URI. Nice. All right. Test passes. Of course, we're far from done, but shall I maybe? Yeah, we'll probably do something like this. So expect. I should have some kind of select form element. Just thinking out loud. So let me. What's the best way to have some kind of Boolean behavior in a form? Is it a checkbox? Is it some kind of toggle? I'm completely lost in my windows here. That's perfect. Okay, cool. Just popping up anywhere. HTML toggle. How do you do that? How to create a toggle switch? W3 schools. No, thanks. Free front end. Okay, let's go with Stack Overflow. So toggle class, no, but that's not really what I'm interested in. A link, not really. Yeah, maybe checkbox is the most semantic one. I don't know. Let's go with checkbox. So checkbox, oh my god, I don't remember. HTML checkbox, it's an input, right? Yes, so in that case, we'll have two of them. We're gonna have two have size. So let's go back to this to contain URI, because I don't really care about the order. That's why I'm doing this, and also official. And for now, let's forget about the select. You see, I'm cheating a little bit here. I'm doing some kind of back and forth with the same tests, so it's probably not academic TDD. So you see, it's failing with size 2 because there is only one so far. So for now, I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to say so official type checkbox. And it's going to complain about the same thing. Official error. And it's for official. All right. And then the last thing, and we'll have to think about this a bit more, but for now I'm gonna take a shortcut. I'm gonna hard code the bold versions in the UI application. So it's not like there are new bold versions every day, so it's more like every 6 months or 3 months. So it's probably an okay compromise for now. And then so what I want to do, I want to have some kind of so if I look at the form element, some kind of select. So I expect to have only one form element, sorry. Yeah, probably gonna rename it to form actually. So understandable in that context. And let's just say inputs. Input form, query, selector, select, and then what can I do with that? Yeah, ID to equal, maybe to be true. See, let's not have the test crash. To be truthy. Transport dropdown should be present. I cannot type. Very nice. Then that select, I will just check it as some kind of idea. Maybe I don't really care. Do I care about the idea? Yeah, not really. Not in that case. I just know it's there is a single one, so I don't need to differentiate any of them. Cool. So I will add a select. By default, probably an empty option. All right, and then it's not happy because there is no label again. Yeah. Multiple supported transports. And supported transports, which means it will be a multiple select. Yeah, let's do that. Cool. And ID will be transports. And we should have a very ugly form at this point. And the test should pass, I believe. Yeah. Let's start the application. At this point, I don't have a dependency yet on my service, so I don't need the API to be up. I should be able to just do npm start and see my very beautiful form. And let's see what happens. It's compiled everything, generated deliverable, and here we go. Yeah, so let's go to that specific URI, open my favorite browser, that is to say Firefox. And yeah, very beautiful web page, a nice field, all in one line with an ugly empty select with multiple select with one option. Perfect. I mean, that's the best user interface ever. But it's there. We'll care about CSS later. And I don't have a good way of test driving CSS, and I don't really have tried hard to do so. I know there are some tools that try to take some kind of images, screenshots of an application and compare it with a previous version more for regression testing more than for test driving. But as far as I know, and I might be completely wrong here, it's not super reliable. It's a bit heavy to use, so let's just not. Maybe one thing I should add to my test is the kind of values, because for now, even if that changes, even if I retrieve those values dynamically, I should expect, so let's take my select here, I drop down, and if I do this, I will do query selector all again. I will just take the options. I will map this to an array because otherwise, DOM, node lists, etc. is very painful to use. And what do I want to do? I probably just want how is it's text content, I guess, right? So opt. Let's try. We'll see if that blows up. I think that's it. Then I need to type it, right? I need to say it's any propagate at braces. Nope. Okay. Just need to give some type hint. In that case, not really a good type hint, but well, we've got to do what we've got to do. So option values, transports basically, and that should be. I guess I can enforce a strict order here, so I can do an equality directly. Something like HTTP bolt one. And I will do in the backend, I will try to parse those properly into a single bolt and a specific version. Bolt 3, bolt 4, what was it 40? Let me check the doc real quick. So that's an advanced user doc. If you're not a driver author, you don't really need to check this website, but in terms of version, yes, 404142. 40 and 4142. All right, so that should fail again. So I should start the test, of course. Yeah, so the rest is undefined because there is a single value here. I could probably filter out the empty option because I'm not very interested in it. Filter out any. So I just want the ones who have text content. Yes, it's like this. Or at least now I should have only undefined. Yep, so length 0. Perfect. So yeah, so in that way I don't have the default option with no value because I'm not very interested in it. And we can there are two ways to do this. We could do it directly in the markup, but we have a component, so let's use that. We can have like transport, like available transport or something, which is an array of string and is equal. Wait, am I again mixing up things? Public, it can actually be public. This and it's string. Now I'm going to be super simple, and I'm going to be super lazy as well. Or maybe I'm thinking. I could hide that. Let's be a bit smarter. I know that's not like me, but let's try to be a bit smarter here. I could instead do something like, yeah, I have an idea. So for the transport stuff, I will keep my test as it is because I think it's good enough for a display to display something like this. However, I will change the driver service to expose a new method, which will give me the available transports. So let me start with the test. In that case, it will be super easy because it's not going to use HTTP at all. How can I say? it returns the available transports, and it will return me the objects. We have an object for this, so let's do this properly. It should not, it could be asynchronous because I'm going to use observable just in case later it's encapsulated by an API. So it doesn't cost too much to do this right now. Right, and though I have my service, I call get available transport. Subscribe to that, and I get transport, and then my test will be done. But before the test is done, I should make sure that transports equal and then a bunch of things. All right, so new. Oh, let me check real quick. Private transport and versions. Right. That's not gonna be a good fit. That's not gonna be a good fit. Maybe I need something extra interface like driver supported transport. There is a notion of transport for a driver, and there is also the single notion of a transport. It will be a value, maybe a type, and a version, which should be optional. How do we do that? TypeScript, come on. TypeScript, optional type. I know they can do this because the type system is quite powerful. Optional parameters in properties. Or what? Like this? Okay, I guess. So we have transport and we have driver transport. Yeah, the name is not great. It is not great. I agree. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. We'll see about refactoring this kind of weird redundancy, but not completely. This weird overlap. But for now, I expect it to be. So I will have HTTP. So what is it? Is it a name? Is it a type? I already forgot. I wrote it 30 seconds ago and I forgot. It's a type. So it's HTTP. And that will be my first transport. Yes, this one. And I will have both version 1. Actually, it will be a string. Version 2, 3, 4.0, 4.1, 4. What did I do? Okay. All right. So I should call this. Of course, it does not exist yet, so it's completely lost. And yeah, that should be enough. So let's do this. Let's create it so that it's not lost anymore. It will be an observable of transport. And for now, I'm just gonna return an empty observable just so it compiles. All right, let's have it. Oh no! Doesn't like this. Why? It's version. Come on. Not happy. Type transport is not assignable to type expected recursive string. Wow. Those error messages get me lost. String or null, I guess, is probably fine in that case. So let's forget about this weird syntax. And what if I do something like this? Will it work? What? What transport is it using? Okay, let's put string or null, and by default it's null. You know what? Can I use this? No, because it's an interface. Okay. Maybe I can use a class here. And then, of course, the syntax changes. If we look at a real simple class. Oh man, it's painful. Version type string, version string or null, and it's null by default. Yeah, of course, I forgot the column because I'm in a big programming language confusion. Yeah, that looks nice, and then it's, you know what, it's public, who cares? Public, no encapsulation, but for what I want to do, and then of course I have to rather to, yeah, so I have to change all of this, so let me keep it like this and change it here. New transport, and then all this, do that first. Wait, that was stupid. So it will be this, and then it will be this, and then this should go away, and like this. Why is it unhappy? Type transport is, what is going on with this expensive stuff? Expand, whatever, expected recursive. What is going on? I'm very confused. Oh, wait, oh, wrong import. Now I understand. Ah, man, that's painful. So let me rename this to avoid any clash. Neo4j transport. Let's be crystal clear about the type I want to use. So here it's fine. However, in the service, it is not. Come on. Come on. Why do you pollute my namespace? I don't like this. And of course, again, small mistake, it's an array of transports. Okay, here we go. Phew, that was painful. So I know it's a bit over time, but I want just to get done with this. With this test, and we'll continue then to what about tomorrow? No, but next week. So we have this, and we just have to use this new get available transport into the component. And so for that, we'll have to prepare the test. So thank you for joining. You were all very quiet today, which leaves me a bit worried, but maybe because everything was super clear and you didn't have any question. In any case, see you next week. We'll continue. We'll hopefully finish the form stuff. I mean, there is still some validation to do, so it might take one or two more sessions. We'll see. And then we might go back to the backend and refine a few things if needed. Or we can, again, after the front-end part is done, stop there and talk about migrations with Liquid Base, Liquid Graph, and the migration tool by my colleague Michael Simons. That's something we can do because the application has some natural uniqueness constraints to define, and indices wouldn't hurt as well. So it's part of application development anyway, to have a proper strategy for indexing and constraints on the data side. So definitely something we can talk about. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you. And I don't know why I show the Restream Studio interface again to everyone. Thanks, everyone. I'm enjoying these, and I will continue next week on this front-end stuff, and see you next week as well. Thank you, and